Aya Wilson took center stage in the Fever Aces series, but not just for her stats. According to Lexie Hull, Wilson's dominance was inflated by officiating that let her play by a different set of rules. In interviews and post-game analysis, Hull didn't hold back, calling out repeated illegal screens, flops, and phantom fouls that turned the court into a lopsided battlefield. Even as players like Aaliyah Boston battled through brutal contact, the whistle rarely came. Hull painted a picture of a team outplaying expectations, but constantly being set back by a system that favored the star on the other bench. This wasn't just a tough series. It was, in Hull's eyes, a performance staged around an untouchable lead. When the rules aren't applied equally, resilience becomes survival, and competition becomes narrative management. The Fever gave everything on the court, but Hull's message suggests the outcome was never in their hands. The heart of her critique is a challenge to the WNBA. Can it protect the league's image while still holding its brightest stars accountable, or has the balance already tipped too far? Lexie Hull didn't hold back. When the Indiana Fever walked off the court after their heated playoff battle with the Las Vegas Aces.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Most players gave the usual answers, stuck to the post-game script, and moved on. Hull didn't. She broke the silence. She exposed what everyone had been seeing, but no one had said out loud. According to her, the series wasn't decided by talent. It wasn't decided by execution. It wasn't even about grit. It was about whistles, specifically the ones that didn't blow when they should have, and the ones that blew far too easily when Aya Wilson was involved. What Lexie Hull laid out wasn't just a rant. It was a clear, structured, and honest breakdown of a problem that's been brewing in the WNBA for a long time: officiating bias. Not just inconsistency, but selective enforcement that favors star power over fairness. And in this case, all eyes were on Aya Wilson, who, according to Hull and her teammates, played a completely different version of the game under a totally different set of rules. Throughout the series, Wilson was repeatedly allowed to set illegal screens, use her body to control space, and sell contact with flops that would have been laughed out of most games, yet still earned her foul calls. Meanwhile, Fever players, especially Aaliyah Boston, were forced to play through relentless physicality, only to get nothing from the officials. Over and over again, Boston got hit, shoved, hacked in the paint, and the whistle stayed silent. But when Wilson so much as stumbled into a defender, she was headed to the line. The numbers don't lie. Wilson shot 26 free throws over 5 games. Boston, 17. And that's despite Boston playing the more physical game, absorbing more contact, and defending cleanly for the majority of the series. The difference wasn't just visible, it was blatant. Hull didn't just vent about frustration. She exposed a pattern, a game-shaping imbalance. She pointed to specific moments: missed moving screen calls, flopping rewarded with whistles, phantom fouls against the Fever that left players visibly stunned. And the league didn't offer explanations. It didn't step in. It didn't review or comment or clarify. It just let the series play out with a clear discrepancy, and Hull made sure people didn't forget it. Wilson's own words didn't help. Her acknowledgement that she had a special whistle wasn't some offhand joke. It was an admission, a knowing nod to the fact that she, as a star, gets officiated differently. And the issue isn't just that it happens. It's that everyone seems to accept it. Hull refused to. She called it out. Directly. Publicly. On record. Because what's the point of competition if the rules only apply to some? Hull's frustration wasn't just about one series. It was about what that series represented. The way officiating seemed to bend around Wilson didn't just hurt the Fever's chances. It undermined the entire idea of fair play. And when that starts happening, when certain players are granted leeway and others are held to a stricter standard, fans notice. Players notice. And trust in the league starts to erode. Throughout the series, the Fever played with resilience. They stayed composed. They fought through contact. They defended without flopping, without theatrics. They played the kind of basketball fans say they want to see: physical, team-oriented, grounded. But they didn't get rewarded for that. Instead, they were hit with soft calls and forced to adjust to a standard that changed depending on the jersey. Hull's words hit because they were rooted in that reality. She wasn't throwing shade. She was defending her team, defending the integrity of the game. And when you watch the replays, when you see the missed illegal screens, the uncalled flops, the momentum-shifting whistles, it's hard to argue against her. This wasn't just a star player getting a couple of favorable calls. It was a repeated pattern that impacted game flow, foul counts, substitutions, and ultimately, outcomes. There were moments where Fever players had to pull back because they knew the whistle wasn't coming, and moments where Wilson leaned into a defender and was practically rewarded for the attempt. That's not strategy. That's exploitation. And when the league turns a blind eye, it stops being competition and starts becoming performance. The coaches knew it, too. Fever staff voiced their frustration. Becky Hammond, who's not one to bite her tongue, expressed clear disappointment. When multiple players and coaches from one team are saying the same thing, it's not a fluke, it's a pattern. And the league's silence in the face of that pattern is damning. Well, Hull did took guts. The risk of being labeled difficult, of being fined, of being iced out by media or the league itself. None of that stopped her. Because what she said needed to be said. It's not just about winning or losing. It's about the how. And if the how is corrupted, then everything else is too. This series should have been a showcase for women's basketball. Two tough teams, elite talent, playoff energy. But instead of being remembered for epic battles and highlight plays, it's now remembered for bad calls and one-sided officiating. And that's on the league. Fans can deal with losing. They can accept tough calls. But what they won't accept is a game that feels rigged by reputation. A game where the best team doesn't get the same treatment as the most popular player. Hull gave voice to that outrage. She gave fans a language for what they saw, but couldn't prove. And once that kind of truth is out in the open, it can't be walked back. So now the ball's in the league's court. Do they own the issue? Acknowledge the imbalance? Review the series? Or do they double down on silence and pretend it didn't happen? Because if the WNBA keeps pretending that special whistles are just part of the game, then the game will suffer. Fans will tune out. Players will stop trusting officials. And the reputation the league has worked so hard to build will crack under the weight of favoritism. Lexie Hull didn't just challenge Aya Wilson. She challenged the system that protects players like her at the expense of everyone else. And whether the league admits it or not, it's now on record. The disparities, the data, the decisions, the favoritism, it's all been exposed. And if nothing changes, if this pattern continues into next season, then the WNBA has a much bigger problem than a few missed calls. What's your take on Lexie Hull's statement? Do you think the league needs to step in and address the officiating? Are players like Aya Wilson being protected by the whistle? Or is this just playoff tension boiling over? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're here for the real stories that cut through the noise, don't forget to subscribe. Because sometimes the truth about the game isn't in the final score. It's in who the whistle favors. The Fever Aces series was supposed to be a celebration of how far the WNBA has come. Two powerhouse rosters, a playoff battle packed with tension, star matchups, storylines, and physical basketball. Instead, what it became, because of officiating, was a cautionary tale about how quickly legitimacy can unravel when rules stop applying evenly. And Lexie Hull called it out, plain and simple. What she did wasn't just rare, it was necessary. Because no one else was saying it, even though everyone saw it. The inconsistency, the favoritism, the frustrating, almost absurd way Aya Wilson was allowed to operate outside the lines while the Fever were punished for playing the game the right way. Hull said what every Indiana player was thinking, what every Fever fan was yelling at the screen, what a lot of neutral observers were tweeting mid-game. She turned up the volume on what had been whispered for too long. The officiating wasn't just flawed, it was skewed. Wilson, for all her talent, has developed a reputation. Not for scoring, not for leadership, but for working the whistle. And she knows it. That's what makes this even more infuriating. She doesn't just benefit from the system. She uses it. She leans into it. Literally. She throws her body into defenders, initiates contact, sells it, flops, then heads to the line while her opponent picks up a foul they didn't earn. The numbers make it undeniable. 26 free throws in 5 games. That's more than 5 a game in a series where she wasn't even the most physically targeted player. Not even close. Aaliyah Boston, who took contact every trip down the court, got less than 4 free throws per game in the same span. That doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen because Boston was less aggressive or less dominant. It happens when officials treat one player like a star and the other like a rookie still earning her stripes. Except Boston is neither a rookie nor a role player. She's one of the best bigs in the league. And still, the calls didn't come. Hull put it out there because someone had to. And what she exposed wasn't just about whistles. It was about power. About how certain players are positioned by the league. Not just as stars, but as symbols. And when you're a symbol, it becomes very, very hard for officials to treat you like everyone else. The league doesn't say that out loud, but their silence after Wilson's special whistle comment speaks volumes. Wilson knew what she was saying, and the league knew they couldn't challenge it without confirming the obvious, that she does get calls others don't. So they stayed quiet. Let blow over. Let Lexie Hull take the risk of being the voice of reason while they focused on keeping their golden narrative intact. That's what makes this so much bigger than a single playoff series. Because if the WNBA doesn't step up and fix this now, what does that say about future series? About players who aren't media darlings? Is this what the playoffs are going to be? A battle between who plays harder and who gets the benefit of the doubt? And what does it say to teams like Indiana, who build from the ground up, who stay disciplined, who buy into the league's respect the game message, only to get hit with phantom fouls while their opponents roll around on the floor and get rewarded? Lexie Hull wasn't whining. She wasn't asking for special treatment. She was demanding equal treatment. And if we're being honest, she was too respectful. Because the film shows just how wide the gap was. Missed moving screens. Obvious flops. Contact initiated by Wilson that was whistled as a defensive foul. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't occasional. It was constant. Every time the Fever started to build momentum, a questionable call would swing things back. It's one thing to deal with bad bounces or cold shooting nights. But when the officiating becomes a factor you can't prepare for, when it actively interferes with a team's rhythm and control, that's when players stop trusting the game. And if players stop trusting the game, fans will too. The WNBA has worked too hard to grow its platform to let this slide. Fair play is the foundation. Integrity is non-negotiable. And when players like Lexie Hull speak up, the response shouldn't be silence. It should be immediate reflection, accountability, and change. Instead, it's been crickets. Which brings us to the biggest question. Why is the league so afraid to admit that certain players get treated differently? Maybe they think acknowledging it weakens the brand. Maybe they think it turns the spotlight into scrutiny. But here's the thing. They already lost control of the narrative. Lexie Hull took it back. She didn't need the league's permission. She just told the truth. And now that it's out there, there's no walking it back. Aya Wilson can pretend it's all just part of the game. The league can hope the offseason buries the noise. But fans have seen the footage. They've seen the call discrepancies. They've watched the breakdowns. It's not up for debate anymore. What's up for debate is what the WNBA plans to do about it. Will they keep allowing special whistles to define outcomes? Will they keep pushing the idea that stardom is more valuable than sportsmanship? Or will they use this moment, this call out from a fearless player who put integrity over image, to reset? Because the truth is, the Fever weren't just playing the aces. They were playing the system. And no matter how hard they worked, how focused they were, how physical they got, the rules weren't the same on both ends. Lexie Hull made that clear. And now the pressure is on the league to respond. Not with PR statements. Not with post hoc explanations. With change. Start with accountability. Review the film publicly. Admit what went wrong. Address why it happened. And explain what will be done to make sure it doesn't happen again. Because if the league continues to protect stars at the expense of everyone else, they're not just hurting the competition. They're cheapening every win. Fans are smart. Players are watching. And thanks to Hull, no one's pretending anymore. Lexie Hull didn't just break rank. She exposed a system that a lot of people in the WNBA would prefer stay untouched. And now, the silence is almost louder than her statement. Let's be absolutely clear. Hull didn't just speak out because she lost. This wasn't about being a sore loser or blaming officials as a scapegoat. The Fever had every right to feel wronged. Not because they were outplayed, but because the playing field wasn't even. Hull's words didn't come from bitterness. They came from watching her team give everything, only to get nothing back from the officials. And when the referees decide when to blow the whistle based on who's wearing which jersey, it's not basketball, it's branding. That's the real issue. Aya Wilson didn't just benefit from calls. She benefited from the expectation that she's untouchable. And the referees officiated her accordingly. Illegal screens? Play on. Flopping? That's just veteran savvy. Initiating contact and then reacting like she was fouled? Better send her to the line. Meanwhile, Aaliyah Boston was getting beat up like she was in a post-up boot camp. And for what? No calls. No whistle. No benefit of the doubt. The Fever got nothing but shrugs from the officiating crew, while the Aces played with the confidence of a team that knew they'd get every borderline call. That's the problem Hull is spotlighting. It's not just inconsistency, it's selective enforcement. And when that favors the league's biggest star, that's not random. That's a message. A message that says, we'll protect who sells tickets, and the rest of you better deal with it. If the WNBA isn't careful, this favoritism will rot the game from the inside out. Players know when the calls aren't fair. They see it happening in real time. You think they don't talk about it in locker rooms? They do. But most stay quiet because they know how the league works. If you speak up, you risk being labeled. You risk fines. You risk becoming the player who's difficult, the one who can't just take the L. But Lexie Hull didn't care. She watched her team get penalized for clean defense. She watched Wilson draw fouls off flops. She watched the rhythm of the game constantly disrupted, not by the teams, but by the officials controlling momentum like they were part of the game plan. And she finally said, enough. Her comments forced the league's hand, except, so far, that hand hasn't moved. No statements, no public accountability, no review or acknowledgement of what fans, players, and analysts have all been pointing out. The disparity wasn't just real, it was measurable. Let's go back to the numbers again. In 5 games, Wilson went to the line 26 times. Boston? 17. Now you can try and argue play style all you want, but that doesn't hold up when you actually watch the series. Boston was getting bodied every possession. She wasn't falling to the ground every time someone brushed her arm. She was playing through contact, staying up, trying to finish strong. Wilson? She was selling contact like she had an acting agent watching. And it worked. Every single time. So ask yourself, why should young players model themselves after Boston when they can look at Wilson and realize the key to success is mastering the flop? Why grind through contact when throwing your head back guarantees you 2 free throws? The league can't have it both ways. They can't say they're building a product based on toughness, grit, and elite competition, then reward the exact opposite. Hull is holding up a mirror to the league, and the reflection is ugly. It's a system that's been slowly veering off course. A system where stars are coddled and protected because they're marketable, not because they've earned it every night. Wilson is talented. No one's disputing that. But when her gameplay starts to rely on special treatment rather than actual dominance, that's a disservice to everyone, including herself. Because now the question isn't, did Aya Wilson carry her team? It's, how much did the refs carry her? And once that question enters the conversation, legacy starts to crumble. Let's not pretend this is new. Star favoritism exists in every league. But the difference here? The WNBA can't afford it. This is a league that's still fighting for respect, for ratings, for fair coverage. And yet, they're turning a blind while their playoff series devolve into highlight reels of questionable officiating. You can't ask fans to invest in a product where the outcome feels predetermined. You can't build long-term trust when people watch a game and think, that whistle's not for everyone. The Fever deserve better. Not just because they played well, but because they played honestly. They didn't lean on flops. They didn't beg for calls. They trusted that if they kept grinding, they'd get their shot. But the officiating never gave them that chance. And now, the league's refusal to address it only confirms what Hull made public. Some players are protected, and others are disposable. That's not just unfair, it's unsustainable. And here's the other thing. The data is out there. Fans broke it down frame by frame. Analysts posted slow-motion clips of Wilson's illegal screens and flops. Boston's physical play with no foul. Hull's defense getting whistled for contact that barely existed. It's not subjective, it's visible. So why won't the league say anything? Why won't they admit that officiating needs to be reviewed? Because they're afraid of what it means. If they admit Hull was right, they admit that the games were compromised, that the outcomes may not have been earned, that the golden goose of WNBA marketing, Io Wilson, may have benefited from a system tilted in her favor. And that's bad for business. But what they're forgetting is this. Ignoring the problem is worse. Fans want transparency. Players want equality. And Hull just gave them a rallying cry. She made it clear that fairness matters more than image. That if the league doesn't hold everyone to the same standard, it's not just the players who suffer, it's the sport. This isn't going away, and it shouldn't. Because the longer the WNBA allows special whistles to define the postseason, the more it chips away at the very thing that's made the league worth watching. Authenticity. The Fever played with integrity. Hull spoke with honesty. Boston showed what it means to take hits and never flinch. And the league let it all be overshadowed by silence and favoritism. So the question now isn't whether Lexie Hull was right. It's whether the league has the courage to prove her wrong by doing something about it. What do you think? Did Lexie Hull shine a light on a broken system? Should the league step up? Or is this just how things are now? Let us know in the comments. And if you're done watching the drama unfold without accountability, hit that subscribe button. Because we're not done holding the system to the same standard it demands from the players.